Unfortunately, Jim can't be with us today. He was going to do the Microsoft news. So you've got good old me, who's done a very quick improvised slide of a big list of stuff that I'm going to talk about. So there's some AVD and there's some Windows 365 updates. I've kind of picked and chosen my favorites over the last sort of 3 months. Ones that are important to me, because I do a lot of Windows 365 stuff, as you'll hear about later in the morning. So, excuse me. Main updates from the last 3 months. So ANC, Azure Network Connection, there's some now new health checks which are enforced, which is important because if you haven't given permission to the required endpoints, your ANCs will then fail. If your ANCs fail, you're unable to provision Windows 365 machines. So that's quite important. So make sure you've got your firewall rules correctly. So they're now enforced. So warnings, you can still provision. If it's a failure, you can't provision. So they are important. So make sure you've checked your required endpoints and all of the firewall rules to connect to them, because Microsoft do change their endpoints. So if you're not using tags and you're using host names, review your rules. There's a public preview of a new Cloud PC monitoring dashboard. This is really, really good. It shows you all of your available Cloud PCs. You can get more detailed metrics into performance, into session performance, session latency, all the kind of good stuff. If you're kind of moving over from like a Citrix Director stuff, it's more like that. It's all in the Intune portal. It's in public preview now. Obviously, at some point, it will go GA, so you'll be able to see that. But do take a look at that. It should be in Intune somewhere for you. If you're using Frontline Dedicated, they're now doing intelligent pre-start. So this is like, it learns when you log into your machine, and it will turn it on for you, so you don't have to then wait for a few minutes for it to be powered up. So it's already running when you want to use it. RDP policies via Intune. So this is being able to configure which style of RDP you want to use. Is it short path via turn? Is it short path via managed networks? All the various different flavors of RDP you can have. You can now configure those via Intune CSP. So which means you can then create different device groups and target them differently across your estate, which is actually quite useful if you have different flavors of RDP that you want to use in your organization. So do check that out. It is really good. Input protection, this is the kind of keylogger protection if you've ever used that in Citrix. Microsoft have now got their version. They've OEM'd another technology to do this, but they're kind of building it into the Windows drivers to kind of give you an end-to-end encryption of the keyboard. Obviously, Microsoft have got a little bit of an advantage if they own the operating system, so they can kind of bake that technology into Windows itself in terms of the client, and also the sort of Windows Cloud PC as well. So they can do a whole encrypted end-to-end channel for the keyboard. So any kind of malicious key loggers that are sitting on the client can't get access to what you're typing, so like passwords and important stuff, right? I think that's still officially in private preview or public preview. I don't know if it's got in GA yet, but have a look. But again, that's useful technology if you're in financial services or anything that's really sensitive. Input protection would be good. If you're using cloud apps, so this is the published application model of Windows 365. You can now publish an MSIX app or an AppX app, which is really useful if you're actually using those two packaging formats, which not many people are, but it's supposed to be the future, right? Teams optimization, so SlimCore is now available on macOS, and the Android support. You can get Teams optimization on Android, but it's not the SlimCore, it's the older WebRTC. But you can do optimization on Android. I'm guessing SlimCore will come at some point for Android, right, to bring all of the platforms up to date. And then if you do custom images, so if you want to provision your Cloud PCs, not using marketplace images, you want to provision your own, you can now store them in an Azure Compute Gallery and then provision them from there, which is quite nice. You don't have to upload it separately. So tons of updates from Windows 365. As you can see, not as many updates from AVD. This is actually over like 3 months. I think the previous list was over 2 months. So you can kind of see where Microsoft are focusing their development. Although, technically, Windows 365 is built on AVD, so same could apply, right? So you can now do RDP short path over private link. Again, if you're using private link in Azure, you can do RDP short path over your private link for your internal IP addressing. There's Entra support for external identities. So if you've got working with third parties or you want to have a guest, you can then allow access to AVD and Windows 365 using external identities, not necessarily your own Entra tenant. FSLogix for cloud identities. So this is quite an important one. If you don't want to have an Active Directory domain, you're purely cloud native. FSLogix has always kind of required that to be a domain member to get the SID permissions to access the share. You can now do it without any Active Directory at all. They support cloud native identity, so Entra only, if you like. And then input protection as well on the FSLogix side. So that's a very quick whirlwind trip around the Microsoft ecosystem. I'm happy to ask any questions. You'll learn a bit more about that in my session. But now I'll hand over to AWS, who've got their update, and then it's coffee. There's your clicker stuff.
Can you all hear me okay? Fantastic. Lovely to see so many of you here today. My name is Peter David. I'm a solutions architect with AWS in the EUC team. Thank you very much to the EUC Forum guys for giving us the opportunity to talk today. So I'm going to flick through in 10 minutes, and I'll see if in November I really, really failed to deliver this in 10 minutes. I'm going to try my best here. Right, let's go forward. Or backwards. Aha, cool. So an agenda here. Very, very quickly, going to dive through a lot of the features we've introduced since the last EUC Forum in November. A lot of information about end-user computing updates, mostly around our workspaces, family of services, and looking out. At least 80% of you are running workspaces, right? So it's going to be really interesting. Key announcement, AWS Workspaces Advisor. Hands up who thinks that may have something to do with AI. It's possible, right? EUC well-architected lens, a new EUC badge. A couple of things, if I've got time at the end, we'll go dive into those very, very quickly. So notable updates for our Amazon Workspaces service over the last 3-4 months. Workspaces Personal is our fully persistent desktop service, so everyone gets their own desktop, persists across the lifetime of their usage. What changes have we made here? So we've got support now for 25H2 Windows 11. Windows Server 2025 support, so if you don't want to build your own Windows 11 image and you want to pick a bundle which is running Server OS and give someone a Windows 11 experience, then Server 2025 is your man. Different instance types that we're supporting now, the GL6 and GL6F, there are highly graphical instance types. If you want to do fractional GPU now with Workspaces and take advantage of the price that fractional instances can give you, then there's a good option there. IPv6 support and Workspaces Advisor, which we're going to talk to in a very, very short space of time. I'm going to quickly skip on to the next, which is Workspaces Applications. Workspaces Applications is our service which delivers published applications. So if you want to deliver applications discretely from a Windows server to a Mac device or a Linux device, very much as you would do with Citrix or Omnissa or AVD, this is the man for you. Again, we've got support for Windows Server 2025. Again, support for those fractional instances, so the ability to assign a single GPU to 2, 4, 8, or 16 users. We've introduced 4K monitor support for non-graphical instance types, which is a big request we've had for our customers from the last 3 or 4 years. Currently, you could only run 4K monitor support if you had fully graphical instances, but now you can do that with non-graphics instances. Elastic Fleets allows you to deliver a huge fleet of instances without having to manage scaling. AWS manages the scaling for you. That used to be based on an older version of Linux, but now we're supporting that through Ubuntu 24.04. And some new health and performance metrics. This is pretty important because all of these changes we're making under the covers to things like availability of metrics is going to play into how we can manage and monitor those services with AI going forwards, and that's what Workspaces Advisor is going to help us do, as you'll see in a moment. We've got drain mode now for multi-session. That's quite big for us. I know with Citrix and other vendors, they've had drain mode for multi-session for many, many years. We've just introduced that so you can start to drain and shut down your multi-session Workspaces applications instances on a schedule. Quick look at the remaining services that we've made changes to in the last 3-4 months. Secure browser, we have a secure browser which allows you to deliver a secure browsing tab inside of your existing browser. and deliver that experience, which is quite secure, preventing viruses and malware from bleeding into your production environments. We've introduced support for WebAuthn, so if you've got 502 devices, we can do in-session support for WebAuthn now, and content filtering, which allows you to quite robustly filter white or blacklist sites, filter out PII information, such as credit card information, all of the kind of functionality you'd hope to see in a secure browser service. Workspaces Core is our service which allows us to integrate our Workspaces service with our vendors. So people like Citrix, like Omnissa, Dizion, all of those folks can take our Workspaces Core API and introduce it into their console to allow you to manage workspaces directly from the console. As an example, in the Studio console, there are a couple of options now to allow you just to automatically start new workspaces from within inside the Studio console. You can continue to use all of the management control plane that you have with Citrix or the other vendors, and you can continue to use the VDA and the HDX protocol with workspaces. Other related news, very, very small, and not necessarily directly related to EUC, but we do have Amazon DCV support now for Mac Mini. So we have a Mac Mini service where you can access a Mac Mini which is racked up inside of EC2. We now support Amazon DCV to connect to that Mac Mini service. And we also, you may have seen that EC2 back in November time, I think, introduced support for nested virtualization. That's not something we currently support with workspaces. But coming down the line, obviously nested virtualization is required for things like WSL2. If you want to do developing using WSL2 or containers, then nested virtualization is very, very important. Okay, skip on very, very quickly to our key announcement, which only was announced, I think, 2 or 3 weeks ago, Workspaces Advisor. So Workspaces Advisor is our first kind of foray into using all of the information that we have about your workspaces behind the scenes and other information such as performance data, and actually feeding that into an MCP server, which can be used to then troubleshoot, optimize your workspaces, and make scaling and troubleshooting much more effective and quick. So I've got a quick overview of how this works. So all of you out there, that 80% of you that are running workspaces, there are several sets of information which are available which describe a workspace. First of all, there's your workspace configuration, which is your VPCs, your subnets, all of that information you use to build the service itself. There are a bunch of CloudWatch metrics, so after you've started your workspace, we start to feed this data in the CloudWatch service, which gives you information, observability for the service and for individual instances, CPU, memory, disk space, all that good stuff. There's a whole bunch of service telemetry, so this is a black box service. We manage the control plane for you. And up until now, it's been very, very difficult for customers to pull any information out of our service telemetry, but we're actually exposing some of that information now as part of the Workspaces Advisor service to allow you to gain more insight into what's happening in your workspaces at the back end. And also service documentation. So there's obviously a raft of service documentation that's available to the MCP service that we can use to drive this new Workspaces Advisor. So what do we do from here? In the console, we have a bunch of workspaces here. And we're selecting one workspace that we believe is problematic. The end users rung in and said, I've got really, really bad performance. What can you do to help me? Typically, this would involve going out to the CloudWatch service or logging onto that instance, remoting into that instance, and having a look at what performance issues are around. Now we can click the Investigate tab and invoke the Workspaces Advisor service. From here, it will run a whole bunch of tests. So currently, over the last 72 hours worth of data that we hold for that workspace, obviously, this is something that's going to evolve as we go forward with this service. And then if we click on that and dive deeper into what's available, it will give us an idea of why we're starting to see issues with this particular workspace. As you can see here, we're pretty much peaking CPU all of the time. And it gives you some steps you can follow to actually start to diagnose that by either logging onto that machine or taking some direct action. And in taking direct action, we can look at alternative actions. And in alternative actions, we've got a step-by-step process for remediating this workspace, or we've got a direct action which we can take to modify the compute type. So Under the covers, we can actually change that compute type to give you more CPU, more memory, more disk space. And if you confirm here, it will go ahead and take that action, upgrade your workspace for you, and the problem should go away. Like the Citrix service that we saw earlier, there's also the ability to chat with the Workspaces advisor. So if you want more contextual information about what's happening with your workspace, once you've actually connected to that workspace and you're looking at the problems on that workspace, you can just do natural language chatting with that MCP server to find out a little bit more information about what's going on. That's just one example of one of the things you can do with Advisor. We've only got 10 minutes. An awful lot more you can do with this. And as you can imagine, as we have all of this service-related data behind the scenes available to us as part of this service, there's an awful lot we can do to help you speed up remediation and scaling of your Workspaces services. Okay, how am I doing for time? Have I got a couple of minutes? 2 minutes, perfect. I managed it. That's fantastic. So EUC Lens and EUC Badge, just a couple of things here. Those of you who worked with AWS for a number of years will know that we've got I'm talking about the badge first. I've swapped these slides around. This is EUC Badge, so if you're involved in managing workspaces and you want to get an accreditation, we now have an end user computing trained badge that you can follow these links in this slide. The slides I can make available after the session, and you can just go through this process of gaining this accreditation. It only takes 2 or 3 hours to go through the training and then take the exam, all online, all free of charge. So if you want to add that little badge to your CV, then this is the process for doing that. We also have something called AWS Well-Architected Lens. A well-architected lens deals with all of the service-related issues for all of our services, so EC2, S3, EBS, all of that good stuff. And we talk about things like operational excellence, security, reliability, performance efficiency, cost optimization, and sustainability. And there are plugins to the well-architected framework, and up until now there has not been a plugin for the EUC service at all. Myself and a couple of my colleagues, some of whom are in the audience today, thought we needed to bridge this gap. So over the last year, we've been writing an EUC-specific extension to the well-architected framework, and you can access that framework at these links. So go ahead, have a look at that. It's very much like the old, when I worked at Citrix for a while, and I worked on the Zen Desktop Deployment Guide, I think it was. This is very similar to that kind of effort, and there's a lot of information buried in here. Just so I could say, a couple of colleagues in the audience, if you want to talk to us about any of the things in this slide deck or anything AWS related, my colleague Mark Homer is here and Malcolm Clark is here. Please tap them on the shoulder and say hello, and I'm sure they'll be happy to answer your questions, as will I. So with that, thank you very much. I think I've managed inside of 10 minutes. Thank you.